12-year-old Kai sat at the kitchen table, pushing his cereal around the bowl with his spoon. The house felt different these days, quieter, emptier since Mom had passed away. It had been 18 months, but sometimes it still felt like yesterday. His dad, Thomas, walked in wearing a smile that had become rare since the funeral. "Got a minute, buddy? I want to talk to you about something," Thomas said, sitting down across from him. Kai looked up, curious about his father's unusually cheerful mood. "What's up, Dad?" Thomas took a deep breath, his eyes bright with excitement. "I've been seeing someone for a few months now. Her name is Rebecca, and, well, I asked her to marry me last night. She said yes." The spoon slipped from Kai's fingers, clattering against the bowl. "You're getting married? To who? I didn't even know you were dating anyone." "I wanted to be sure it was serious before I told." "You," Thomas explained, reaching across the table to squeeze his son's hand. "Rebecca is wonderful. She's an interior designer. We met when I was renovating the office. You'll love her, I promise." Kai swallowed hard. His dad was getting married, to a complete stranger. "When do I get to meet her?" "Tonight, actually. She's coming over for dinner." That evening, Kai stood awkwardly in the living room as his father opened the front door. A tall, slim white woman with shoulder-length blonde hair walked in, her smile dazzling as she looked around the modest but well-kept home. "You must be Kai," she said, bending slightly to meet his eyes. "Your dad has told me so much about you. I'm Rebecca." Kai nodded, taking in everything about her. She was pretty, that was for sure. Her clothes looked expensive, and she smelled like fancy perfume. His dad looked at her like she was magic, his hand resting on the small of her back, as he guided her into their home. Over dinner, Rebecca charmed them with stories about her design projects and travels. She asked Kai questions about school and his friends, seeming genuinely interested in his answers. But something felt off to him. When she mentioned loving his mother's recipe for sweet potato pie, Kai's ears perked up. "How did you know that? Was Mom's recipe?" he asked, cutting her off mid-sentence. Rebecca blinked, her smile faltering for just a second. "Oh, your father told me, of course, didn't you, honey?" She turned to Thomas, who nodded, though he looked slightly confused. "Right, yeah, must have mentioned it." Kai frowned. His dad barely knew how to make toast, let alone the details of his mom's recipes. And his mother's sweet potato pie had been special, a closely guarded family recipe she'd been proud of. Something didn't add up. In the weeks that followed, Rebecca became a constant presence in their lives. She started staying over on weekends, her belongings gradually appearing in the bathroom and bedroom. She rearranged furniture, replaced photos, and suggested new paint colors. The house began to look less and less like the home Kai had grown up in. Thomas was different too. He walked around with a permanent smile, laughing at Rebecca's jokes, and agreeing with her suggestions. It was like he'd been cast under some kind of spell. When Kai tried to talk to him alone, Rebecca always seemed to appear, slipping her arm through his dad's and steering the conversation elsewhere. One night, as Kai was heading to the kitchen for a glass of water, he overheard Rebecca on the phone in the backyard, her voice low and intense. "Everything's going according to plan, Margie. He has no idea. The wedding's set for June, and once we're married, I'll have access to everything. No, the kid's not a problem. He's just a boy. Thomas only sees what he wants to see." Kai froze, his heart pounding. He ducked behind the curtain as Rebecca turned toward the house, quickly ending her call and plastering that perfect smile back on her face as she came inside. The next morning at breakfast, Rebecca announced she had moved up the wedding date. "I found the perfect venue, but they had a cancellation for next month. I put down a deposit right away." "Isn't that wonderful? We don't have to wait until June." Thomas looked surprised but pleased. "That's great, honey. A bit quick, but why wait when you know it's right?" "Next month," Kai blurted out. "But that's so soon." Rebecca's smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened slightly as they met Kai's. "When you're in love, sweetie, you just know. Your father and I don't want to waste any more time." After school that day, Kai visited his grandmother, his mother's mom, who lived a few blocks away. Grandma Lou had always been his safe place, especially since Mom died. "Grandma, Did you know Dad's getting married? To some lady named Rebecca? The wedding's next month. Grandma Lou's eyebrows shot up. Next month? Your father only introduced her to me 2 weeks ago. This is awfully sudden. I don't trust her, Kai admitted, relieved to finally say it out loud. She acts weird sometimes, and she knows things about Mom she shouldn't know. His grandmother frowned. What do you mean? She knew about Mom's sweet potato pie recipe. And last night, she told Dad a story about how Mom used to always burn the Thanksgiving turkey, and they both laughed about it. Your mother never cooked a turkey in her life, Grandma Lou said sharply. We always had ham for Thanksgiving because your grandfather was allergic to turkey. That tradition continued even after your parents got married. Kai felt a chill run down his spine. See? How would she know about Mom at all? Dad says they met at his office, and she's never even lived in this town before. Grandma Lou looked troubled. Have you talked to your father about this? I tried, but he doesn't listen. He just says I need to give her a chance. That I'm being difficult because I don't want him to be happy. That doesn't sound like your father, at all. Grandma Lou patted his hand. Something's not right here. I'm going to make some calls. Over the next week, Rebecca's takeover of their lives accelerated. She convinced Thomas to upgrade her engagement ring to something more suitable. She started talking about selling the house and moving to a bigger one in a different neighborhood. She even suggested Kai might be happier at a private school across town, away from his friends. Whenever Thomas's brother, Uncle Pete, or Grandma Lou came over, Rebecca would find reasons to cut the visits short or to keep Thomas occupied. Kai noticed how she always managed to steer his dad away from family who might ask too many questions. One day after school, Kai was looking for his baseball glove in the garage when he noticed Rebecca's purse on the workbench. He knew he shouldn't snoop, but the conversation he'd overheard kept playing in his mind. Looking around to make sure no one was coming, he quickly unzipped the bag. Inside, he found a wallet with multiple ID cards, each with Rebecca's photo but different names. Rebecca, White, Rachel Winters, Renee Watson. There was also a small notebook with what looked like information about his family. His dad's bank account numbers, retirement fund details, even the value of their house and his mom's life insurance payout. His hands shaking, Kai pulled out his phone and took pictures of everything before carefully putting it all back. Just as he zipped up the purse, he heard the door from the kitchen open. What are you doing in here? Rebecca's voice was sharp, her usual warmth completely gone. Kai jumped, nearly dropping his phone. Just looking for my baseball glove, he stammered, holding up the glove he'd grabbed at the last second. Rebecca's eyes narrowed as she looked from Kai to her purse and back again. Find what you were looking for? Yep. Got practice tomorrow. He edged past her, his heart hammering in his chest. That night, as his dad and Rebecca discussed wedding details in the living room, Kai sat in his bedroom staring at the photos he'd taken. He knew now that his instincts had been right. Rebecca wasn't who she claimed to be. She was after his dad's money, maybe even worse. But how could he prove it to his dad, who seemed blind to anything but Rebecca's smile? His phone buzzed with a text from his cousin Jay, who was in high school and super good with computers. Hey cuz, still need help with that science project? Kai looked at the pictures on his phone again, then at the closed door of his bedroom, beyond which he could hear Rebecca's laughter and his father's besotted response. His fingers moved quickly over the screen. Yeah, but it just got a lot more complicated. Can you come over tomorrow? And don't tell anyone what we're working on. The next afternoon, Kai paced his bedroom, waiting for his cousin Jay to arrive. He'd barely slept, his mind racing with questions about Rebecca and what she was really after. When the doorbell finally rang, he raced downstairs, relieved that his dad was at work and Rebecca was out shopping for wedding decorations. Hey, little man, Jay said, following Kai up to his room. At 16, Jay was everything Kai wanted to be: smart, confident, and tech-savvy. So what's this super-secret project you need help with? Kai closed his bedroom door and pulled out his phone. It's about Dad's fiancée, Rebecca. I think she's lying about who she is. He showed Jay the photos he'd taken of the multiple IDs and the notebook. Jay whistled softly as he scrolled through the pictures. Whoa, this is serious stuff, Kai. This isn't just someone fibbing about their age or something. I know, she's been acting weird since day one. Saying things about Mom she couldn't possibly know. Pushing to get married super fast. Trying to get Dad to change his will. I heard her on the phone talking about how once they're married she'll have access to everything. Jay's expression grew serious. This sounds like some kind of scam. Have you told your dad? Kai shook his head. He doesn't listen. He thinks I'm just being difficult because I don't want him to date anyone. He looked down at his hands. I get it. He's been lonely since Mom died. But Rebecca's lying to him, and I need to prove it before it's too late. All right, detective, Jay said, pulling out his laptop. Let's see what we can find out about this Rebecca, or whoever she really is. First, we need better pictures of those IDs. Over the next 2 hours, they hatched a plan. The following day was Saturday, and Rebecca was scheduled to have a dress fitting. With the house empty, they would look through her things for more evidence. It wasn't ideal, but they were running out of time. The wedding was just 3 weeks away. That night at dinner, Rebecca announced she'd hired a wedding planner and changed the venue again. It's going to be at the Grand Hotel now. I know it's more expensive, honey, but it's my dream venue. Thomas smiled at her adoringly. Whatever makes you happy, sweetheart, though I thought we agreed to keep it small. Oh, but we have to invite all your business associates, and I've invited a few of my old college friends too. Rebecca reached for his hand across the table. Don't worry about the cost. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. Kai watched his father nod in agreement, completely under Rebecca's spell. He caught her glancing at him, a calculating look in her eyes that vanished as soon as she realized he was watching. The next morning, Rebecca kissed Thomas goodbye as she left for her fitting. Don't forget, you promised to meet with the bank today about adding me to your accounts. Right, Thomas said. I've got the appointment at 11. As soon as they were both gone, Kai texted Jay, who arrived 15 minutes later with his laptop and a small digital camera. Okay, Jay said as they entered the master bedroom. We need to be quick and careful. Put everything back exactly where you found it. They started with Rebecca's side of the closet, searching through clothing and shoeboxes. In a hatbox on the top shelf, they found a burner phone, different from the iPhone she normally used. Jay took photos of it and the call history. Under the mattress, they discovered a manila envelope containing more documents. A marriage certificate with the name Rachel Winters, married to a man named Harold Thompson just 3 years ago. Divorce, papers that seemed incomplete, and financial statements from accounts they didn't recognize. Look at this, Kai said, pointing to a bank statement. This is from last month, but the name says Renee Watson, and there's a transfer here for $50,000 from someone named Gerald Phillips. Jay took photos of everything. This is getting weirder by the minute. Let's check her laptop. Rebecca's sleek silver laptop sat on the dresser. It was password protected, but Jay had come prepared. He plugged in a small device to the USB port. This won't give us access to everything, but it might help us find some basic info, he explained. After a few minutes, they were able to access her browser history. Recent searches included how to contest a will, transferring large sums of money overseas, and Thomas Mitchell net worth. Dad's not even that rich, Kai said, looking over Jay's shoulder. I mean, his business does okay, but we're not millionaires or anything. Maybe not, but between his business, your house, and any life insurance from your mom, it could add up to a decent payday for someone running a scam. Jay continued scrolling. Look, she's been researching your family for months. Here's a search for your mom's obituary from almost a year ago. Kai felt sick. So she targeted Dad on purpose? This wasn't just some random meeting? Looks that way. Jay took more screenshots. And check this out. She's got a whole folder of emails to someone named Margie about their plan and splitting the money. They heard a car door slam outside. Kai rushed to the window. It's Rebecca, she's back early. They quickly put everything back exactly as they'd found it. Jay grabbed his equipment and they slipped out the back door just as they heard Rebecca's key in the front lock. They ran all the way to Jay's house, where they spent the rest of the afternoon going through the evidence they'd gathered. Jay's older brother Ben, who was home from college, overheard them talking and joined their investigation. "This is serious," Ben said, looking through the photos. "These aren't just white lies. This is identity fraud, possibly bigamy if she's still married to this Harold guy, and definitely conspiracy to commit fraud." "What's bigamy?" Kai asked. "Being married to more than one person at the same time," Ben explained. "It's illegal, and from what you've found, it looks like she might still be married to this Harold Thompson person." "So what do we do?" Kai asked desperately. "Dad won't listen to me. He thinks Rebecca walks on water." Ben thought for a moment. "You need adult backup. Someone your dad respects and will listen to. And you need more concrete proof. These photos are suspicious, but we need to connect the dots between all these identities." That evening, Kai called his grandmother and Uncle Pete, asking them to come over for a family meeting the next day when his dad would be home, but Rebecca would be out with the wedding planner. The following afternoon, Grandma Lou and Uncle Pete arrived as planned. Rebecca had left just 30 minutes earlier, giving Kai a suspicious look as she walked out the door. "Dad," Kai said solemnly once they were all seated in the living room, "there's something important we need to talk about. It's about Rebecca." Thomas sighed heavily. "Kai, we've been through this. I know it's been hard. Please, just listen," Kai interrupted, his voice cracking. He nodded to Jay, who opened his laptop and started showing the evidence they'd gathered. The multiple IDs, the financial documents, the searches about Thomas's worth, and the emails discussing the plan. "She's been lying to you, Dad. Her real name might not even be Rebecca. She's done this before to other men. She's after your money, not you." Thomas's face paled as he looked through the evidence, but then his expression hardened. "You went through her personal belongings, invaded her privacy? How could you do that?" "Thomas," Grandma Lou said gently, "look at what they found. This woman is not who she claims to be." "This is ridiculous," Thomas snapped, standing up. "You've never given her a chance, any of you. You've been against her from the start." "That's not true," Uncle Pete said. "We wanted you to be happy, but this is suspicious, Thomas. You have to admit that." "I don't have to admit anything except that my own family is trying to sabotage the best thing that's happened to me since I lost Clara." Thomas ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "Rebecca warned me this might happen. She said families often resist when someone moves on after losing a spouse." "Did she now?" Grandma Lou's voice was quiet but firm. "Isn't that convenient?" "Get out," Thomas said, his voice shaking. "All of you. I don't want to hear another word against Rebecca." Kai felt tears welling up in his eyes. "Dad, please, especially you, Kai. I can't believe you would do this. Going through her things, taking pictures, making up these wild accusations. I thought I raised you better than that." Heartbroken, Kai watched as his father stormed out of the room. The front door opened and Rebecca walked in, taking in the scene with a look of concern that didn't reach her eyes. "What's going on?" she asked, moving to Thomas's side and putting a protective arm around him. "Nothing," Thomas said, glaring at his family. "They were just leaving." As they filed out, Rebecca caught Kai's eye and gave him a small, triumphant smile that only he could see. In that moment, Kai knew she was aware of what they'd tried to do and that she'd won this round. But he wasn't giving up. The wedding was less than 3 weeks away, and somehow he had to find proof his father couldn't ignore. Something so undeniable that not even Rebecca's manipulations could explain it away. "I'm sorry, Dad," Kai whispered as the door closed behind him, leaving his father alone with the woman who was systematically destroying their family. "But I'm going to save you whether you want me to or not." The next few days were tense in the Mitchell household. Thomas barely spoke to Kai, and when he did, his words were clipped and cold. Rebecca, on the other hand, was extra sweet, playing the role of the understanding stepmother-to-be while keeping Thomas firmly under her spell. "I know you're just looking out for your dad," she said to Kai one morning when Thomas was in the shower. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were hard as steel. But you're fighting a losing battle, sweetie. The wedding is in 18 days and nothing you do will stop it. If you were smart, you'd accept me as part of the family. Kai stared back at her, refusing to be intimidated. My mom taught me that the truth always comes out eventually. Rebecca's smile tightened. Your mother isn't here anymore, is she? And soon you might not be either. I've been talking to your father about that. Boarding school across the state. It would give you such a fresh start away from all these painful memories. Before Kai could respond, Thomas walked into the kitchen. Rebecca immediately switched to her loving fiancé persona, pouring him coffee and asking about his day ahead. That afternoon, Kai met with Jay, Ben, Grandma Lou, and Uncle Pete at a small cafe far from their neighborhood. They had to be careful now. Rebecca seemed to have eyes everywhere. We need to find someone who can positively identify her from her past, Ben said, tapping a pen against his notepad. Someone who can confirm she scammed other people. I tried searching for this Harold Thompson guy online, Jay explained, but there are too many of them. Without knowing where they lived, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Grandma Lou cleared her throat. I have a friend whose son is a private investigator. Maybe he could help. Uncle Pete nodded. Good idea. And I have a buddy who works at the county clerk's office. He might be able to check marriage records if we give him the names we know. We need to work fast, Kai said, his voice urgent. Dad's already added Rebecca to some of his accounts, and yesterday I overheard them talking about changing his will. They divided up tasks. Ben would work with Grandma Lou's PI contact. Jay would continue digging into Rebecca's digital footprint. Uncle Pete would check with his friend about the marriage records. And Kai would keep his eyes and ears open at home, looking for any new information. That evening, Rebecca announced she'd be gone overnight for a bridal retreat with her friends. Kai found this suspicious since he'd never heard her mention any local friends before. After she left, he tried to talk to his dad again. Dad, can we just talk for a minute? Please? Thomas looked up from his laptop with tired eyes. I don't want to hear any more accusations about Rebecca, Kai. I know you love her, Dad. But don't you think it's weird that you've only known her for a few months and you're already changing your will? Mom always said important decisions shouldn't be rushed. Something flickered across Thomas's face, doubt perhaps, but it quickly disappeared. Rebecca and I are getting married. That makes her family. It's normal to include your spouse in your will. But what about all those different names we found? And the marriage certificate to that other guy? Don't you think that's strange? Thomas sighed heavily. She explained all that. She changed her name to escape an abusive relationship. The marriage certificate was from a previous marriage that ended badly. She's been through a lot, Kai, and you invading her privacy just made things harder for her. Kai bit his lip, frustrated that his father couldn't see what was right in front of him. Dad, Enough. Thomas closed his laptop. I'm going to bed. And Kai? Rebecca mentioned that boarding school again. I think it might be a good option for you. A fresh start. Kai felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Rebecca was trying to send him away to isolate his dad completely. He had to find proof, and fast. The next morning, Kai got a text from Jay. Big news. Call me ASAP. He waited until his dad left for work, then called his cousin. What did you find? Remember that burner phone we found in Rebecca's stuff? I managed to track down one of the numbers she called a lot. Someone named Margie. After some digging, I found a Margie Fletcher who has a sister named Regina Fletcher. And guess what? There's a mugshot of Regina from 3 years ago for fraud charges in Arizona. It's definitely Rebecca. Kai's heart raced. You found her real name? Yes, but that's not all. Regina has been arrested twice, but the charges were dropped both times when the victims refused to testify. And here's the kicker. I found an article about one of her victims, a widower named Gerald Phillips, who lost over $200,000 to her. He died of a heart attack right after discovering her scam. Oh my God, Kai whispered. We have to tell Dad. There's more, Jay continued. I found a support group online for victims of romance scams. I reached out to them with Rebecca's picture, and 3 people recognized her under different names. One guy, Harold Thompson, is still legally married to her. She cleaned out his bank accounts and disappeared 2 years ago. Is he willing to talk to us? To tell my dad what she did? Better than that, Jay said, his voice excited. He's willing to come here. He lives in Colorado now, but he said he can fly in this weekend. He wants to stop her before she hurts someone else. For the first time in weeks, Kai felt a surge of hope. This was the concrete proof they needed. Someone from Rebecca's past who could expose her lies face to face. That night, Rebecca returned from her retreat with shopping bags full of expensive items. Just a few things for the honeymoon, she told Thomas with a wink. Kai noticed a new diamond bracelet on her wrist that hadn't been there before. The next few days were a flurry of activity. Harold Thompson was scheduled to arrive on Saturday. Uncle Pete confirmed through his clerk friend that Rebecca White had never legally divorced Harold Thompson. Ben's PI contact found connections between Regina Fletcher and 2 other cases of fraud against wealthy older men. They gathered all their evidence, planning to present it to Thomas on Saturday afternoon, when Harold would be there to confirm everything. It was their last chance to stop the wedding, which was now just 12 days away. But on Friday evening, everything changed. Kai came home from school to find Rebecca in a state of panic, throwing clothes into suitcases. "What's going on?" he asked, watching her from the doorway of his dad's bedroom. Rebecca whirled around, her face flushed. "Family emergency. My mother had a stroke. We're flying out tonight to be with her." Kai frowned. "Both of you? Where?" "Minneapolis. We'll be gone for a few days." She zipped up a suitcase with shaking hands. "Your grandmother will stay with you." Something didn't add up. "I thought you said your parents were both dead. You told Dad you were an orphan." Rebecca froze for a split second, then continued packing. "My biological parents are dead. This is my stepmother, the woman who raised me." "I've never heard you mention a stepmother before." Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "You don't know everything about me, kid." She picked up her phone and sent a text. "Your father will be home soon. Go pack a bag to take to your grandmother's." Kai didn't move. "This is really sudden." "That's how emergencies work." Rebecca brushed past him, dragging the suitcase behind. Kai immediately texted Jay. "SOS Rebecca packing to leave town with Dad. Says family emergency, but story doesn't add up. Thinks she might be running." Jay responded right away. "Stall them. Harold's flight lands tonight, not tomorrow. I'll call him to come straight to your house. Uncle Pete and Ben are on their way." Thomas arrived home 30 minutes later, looking confused but determined. "Kai, go pack your things. We need to get you to Grandma's house before our flight." "Dad, wait," Kai pleaded. "You can't go. Rebecca is lying to you." Thomas closed his eyes briefly. "Not this again. Her mother had a stroke. She needs me. She told me her parents were dead, both of them. She's making this up, Dad. She knows we found proof about who she really is, and she's trying to get you away before you can see it." "That's enough," Thomas shouted, his patience finally snapping. "Go to your room and pack your things now." Kai retreated to his room, frantically texting updates to Jay. Through his window, he saw Uncle Pete's car pull up, followed by Ben's. A few minutes later, another car arrived, a taxi. A tall man with graying hair stepped out, looking determined. Harold Thompson had arrived. Downstairs, Kai could hear raised voices. Rebecca was shouting at someone, probably Uncle Pete trying, to stop them from leaving. He grabbed his backpack and raced down the stairs. In the living room, Thomas stood frozen, staring at the stranger who had just walked in with Ben. Rebecca's face had gone pale, her eyes wide with panic. "Hello, Rachel," Harold Thompson said, his voice eerily calm. "Or is it Rebecca now? It's been a while." Rebecca backed away, shaking her head. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Thomas? Who is this man?" Harold stepped forward, pulling out his wallet. He extracted a photo and handed it to Thomas. "That's our wedding day 2 years ago. Right before she emptied my bank accounts and disappeared with everything I had. My wife, Rachel Winters." though I see she's changed her hair since then." Thomas looked from the photo to Rebecca, confusion and pain etched across his face. "Rebecca, what is this?" Rebecca's expression changed in an instant, her panic replaced by cold calculation. "It's a mistake. A case of mistaken identity. This man is clearly confused." "No confusion," Harold said. "We have proof." He nodded to Ben, who opened a folder containing copies of the marriage certificate, photos of Rebecca with Harold, and police reports filed after she disappeared. "Thomas, don't listen to them," Rebecca pleaded, grabbing his arm. "They're trying to ruin what we have. We need to go now, or we'll miss our flight." But Thomas wasn't listening. He was looking through the documents, his hands trembling. "These are real," he whispered. "These are official documents." "There's more," Kai said, stepping forward. "Her real name is Regina Fletcher. She's done this before to other men. She's a con artist, Dad. She targeted you because of Mom's life." "Insurance money." Thomas looked up at Rebecca, his eyes filled with pain and betrayal. "Is that true? Was any of it real?" For a moment, Rebecca seemed to consider continuing the lie. Then her shoulders slumped, and a cold smile spread across her face. "You were an easy mark, Thomas. So desperate for love after your wife died. So eager to believe someone like me could want someone like you." The cruelty of her words hit Thomas like a physical blow. He staggered back, sinking into a chair. "All this time, I would have been gone within a year," Rebecca continued, her voice hardening. "With enough money to live very comfortably, you would have never found me." Uncle Pete had called the police, who arrived just as Rebecca tried to make a break for the door. She was stopped by a young officer, who began reading her rights as he handcuffed her. "You'll regret this," she hissed at Kai as they led her away. "All of you." In the sudden quiet that followed, Kai approached his father, who sat motionless, staring at nothing. "Dad? Are you okay?" Thomas looked up slowly, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "You knew. All this time you knew what she was, and I wouldn't listen. You loved her," Kai said simply. "She made sure of that." Thomas reached out and pulled Kai into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry, son. I should have trusted you. I should have listened." Over his father's shoulder, Kai met the eyes of his family members. Uncle Pete, Ben, Jay, and now Grandma Lou, who had just arrived. They had done it. Together they had saved his father from a terrible mistake, but as he felt his dad's shoulders shaking with silent sobs, Kai knew that winning had come at a price. His father's heart was broken again, barely healed from losing Mom. It would take time for those wounds to heal. "We're going to be okay, Dad," he whispered, holding on tight. "We're going to be okay." The house felt strangely empty in the days following Rebecca's arrest. Thomas moved through rooms like a ghost, picking up items she had touched, staring at spaces where she had stood. The wedding decorations, half unpacked in boxes, sat forgotten in corners. Kai watched his father with worried eyes, unsure how to help him through this second heartbreak. On the third morning, Kai came downstairs to find Thomas sitting at the kitchen table, coffee gone cold in front of him, staring at a stack of papers. "Dad, you okay?" Thomas looked up, his eyes tired but clearer than they had been since the arrest. "Morning, buddy. Just going through some of the financial damage." Kai sat down beside him. "Is it bad?" "Could have been worse." Thomas ran a hand through his hair, which needed a cut. "She got into my checking account and one credit card, about $30,000 gone. Most of it spent on clothes and jewelry we can't recover." He gave a humorless laugh. "She was smart enough not to touch the business accounts or your college fund. Those would have been harder to access without raising red flags." "I'm sorry, Dad." Thomas shook his head. "Don't you dare apologize. You saved me from losing everything." He reached out and squeezed Kai's shoulder. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't been so persistent. She would have taken everything, including you," Kai remembered Rebecca's threats about boarding school and shivered. "What happens now with Rebecca, I mean? Her real name is Regina Fletcher, like you found out. The police say she's wanted in 3 states for similar scams." Thomas sighed heavily. They're holding her without bail because she's a flight risk. I have to go down to the station later to give another statement. Will there be a trial? Probably. With Harold Thompson's testimony and all the evidence we found, she's looking at serious jail time. Thomas set the papers aside. But enough about her. I think we need a fresh start. What do you say to repainting the living room this weekend? Your mom never liked that tan color anyway. It was the first time since Rebecca's arrest that Thomas had mentioned Clara without his voice breaking. Kai smiled, feeling a small weight lift from his shoulders. Yeah. Mom always said it should be blue. Over the next week, life began to find a new rhythm. The wedding was canceled, deposits lost, but Thomas didn't seem to care about the money. He focused instead on rebuilding his relationship with Kai and reconnecting with family members who had tried to warn him. Grandma Lou came over more often, cooking meals and filling the house with the scent of homemade bread and stew. Uncle Pete helped Thomas with some business matters that had been neglected during the whirlwind engagement. Jay and Ben visited regularly, bringing video games and movies to distract Kai from the ongoing police investigation. One evening, as Kai was helping his grandmother wash dishes, she nudged him gently. You're a brave boy, you know that? Standing up to that woman when even the adults couldn't see through her. Kai shrugged, embarrassed by the praise. I just knew something was wrong. She didn't fit, like a puzzle piece from the wrong box. Grandma. Lou smiled. You've got good instincts like your mother. She dried her hands on a towel. Your dad's still hurting, but he's going to be okay. Thanks to you. Later that night, Kai found his father in the study, looking at old photo albums. Pictures of his mother smiled up from the pages, her warm brown eyes crinkling at the corners. She was beautiful, Kai said, sitting beside his dad on the small sofa. Yes, she was. Thomas traced a finger over Clara's face in their wedding photo. You know what the hardest part is? I feel like I betrayed her, like I replaced her with someone who wasn't worthy to even speak her name. Mom would understand, Kai said firmly. She'd want you to be happy. Thomas put an arm around his son. When did you get so wise, huh? 2 weeks after Rebecca's arrest, Detective Walsh came to their house for a follow-up interview. He was a tall man with kind eyes that had seen too much and a notebook that never seemed to leave his hand. We've been piecing together Ms. Fletcher's history, he explained as they sat in the living room. The walls were now a soft blue, all traces of Rebecca's decorating choices erased. It's quite extensive. She's been running variations of this scam for nearly 10 years. 10 years? Thomas looked stunned. How did she get away with it for so long? Most of her victims were too embarrassed to press charges, or by the time they realized what had happened, she was long gone with a new identity. The detective flipped through his notes. Thanks to the evidence your son and family gathered, we've been able to connect her to at least 7 other cases. Kai leaned forward. 7? Detective Walsh nodded. Most followed the same pattern. She would target widowers or recently divorced, men with assets, create a whirlwind romance, push for a quick marriage, then disappear with as much money as she could get her hands on. What about Harold Thompson? Kai asked. Is he still legally married to her? He's filed for annulment on grounds of fraud. Should be straightforward given the circumstances. The detective turned to Thomas. Mr. Mitchell, we'll need you to testify when this goes to trial. Your case, along with Mr. Thompson's, provides our strongest evidence. Thomas nodded solemnly. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure she can't do this to anyone else. After the detective left, Thomas suggested they go out for pizza. I think we deserve a night off from cooking, don't you? At the restaurant, they ran into Mrs. Chen, Kai's math teacher, who was there with her daughter. She stopped by their table to say hello. Kai, I was so impressed with your test results this week, especially considering everything you've been dealing with at home. She gave Thomas a sympathetic smile. The school grapevine has been buzzing. I'm sorry for what your family went through. Thomas looked embarrassed. News travels fast, I guess. Small towns, Mrs. Chen said with a shrug. For what it's worth, I think you're both very brave. And Kai, Don't forget about the math competition, next month. With your scores, you should definitely enter. After she walked away, Thomas raised an eyebrow at Kai. Math competition? You didn't mention that? Kai poked at his pizza. Didn't seem important with everything else going on. Hey. Thomas waited until Kai looked up. Your life, your achievements, they're always important. No matter what else is happening, okay? Kai nodded, feeling a warm glow of pride. Okay. As spring turned to summer, the legal proceedings against Regina Fletcher moved forward. Thomas had to give statements and prepare for possible testimony, but he made sure these obligations didn't overshadow their family life. They went fishing, at the lake where Kai had learned to swim years ago. They fixed up the treehouse in the backyard that had been neglected since Clara's death. They had dinner with Grandma Lou every Sunday, a tradition that had fallen by the wayside during the Rebecca months. One warm evening, as they sat on the back porch watching fireflies blink in the gathering darkness, Kai worked up the courage to ask a question that had been bothering him. Dad, do you think you'll ever, date again? Thomas was quiet for so long that Kai thought he might not answer. Finally, he sighed. I don't know, buddy, not anytime soon, that's for sure. I need to get my head on straight first. Learn to trust my own judgment again. He looked over at Kai. Would it bother you if I did, someday? Kai considered the question carefully. No, not if she's a good person. A real good person, not a fake one like Rebecca. And how would we know the difference? We'd take it slow. Do background checks. Kai grinned. Maybe hire a private investigator, up front instead of after the engagement. Thomas laughed, a genuine laugh that Kai hadn't heard in months. Deal. Though I'm thinking we might need a family approval committee. You, Grandma Lou, Uncle Pete. All votes must be unanimous. And no rushing into anything, Kai added, suddenly serious. Mom always said important decisions need time. Your mom was right about a lot of things. Thomas's voice grew soft. She would have been so proud of you, Kai. Standing up for what you knew was right even when I wouldn't listen. That took real courage. Kai felt his throat tighten with emotion. I just didn't want to lose you. You didn't. You saved me. Thomas put his arm around Kai's shoulders. And I promise from now on, I'll always listen to you, even when what you're saying is hard to hear. In July, they received news that Regina Fletcher had accepted a plea deal. She would serve 5 years in prison and pay restitution to her victims, including Thomas and Harold Thompson. There would be no trial, no need to testify. It's really over, Thomas said after hanging up the phone with their lawyer. We can put this whole nightmare behind us. That night, Kai found a small box on his pillow wrapped in blue paper. Inside was a compass, old-fashioned and made of polished brass. What's this for? He asked his dad, who was leaning against the doorframe watching him. It's a reminder, Thomas said, coming into the room and sitting on the edge of the bed. When I got lost, you were my compass. You pointed me back to what was true. Kai turned the compass over in his hands, feeling the weight of it, solid and real. Thanks, Dad. No, Kai. Thank you. Thomas pulled him into a hug. For trusting your instincts when mine were completely off. For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. As they sat there together, Kai felt something settle inside him, a certainty that whatever challenges came next, they would face them together. The worst was behind them now. His dad was back, really back, not the distracted, love-struck stranger he'd become with Rebecca. Their family, though smaller than some, was strong again. The compass in his hand pointed north, steady and unwavering. Like the truth. Like love. Like family. 1 year later, Kai sat in the courthouse hallway, nervously swinging his legs. The polished wooden bench was hard beneath him, and the formal clothes his grandmother had insisted on felt stiff and uncomfortable. His dad sat beside him, checking his watch every few minutes. How much longer? Kai asked, pulling at his tie. Not sure, buddy. Legal stuff takes time. Thomas put a reassuring hand on Kai's shoulder. Remember, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. Kai shook his head firmly. I want to. I need to see her one last time." They were at the sentencing hearing for Regina Fletcher, formerly known to them as Rebecca White. After numerous delays and legal maneuvers, the day had finally arrived when she would learn her fate. The prosecutor had invited both Kai and Thomas to make victim impact statements if they wished. Thomas had declined, saying he'd already wasted enough of his life on that woman, but Kai had surprised everyone by asking to speak. The large wooden doors opened, and a court officer beckoned them. "They're ready for you now." The courtroom was smaller than Kai had expected, nothing like the dramatic TV versions he'd seen. There were only a few people scattered in the audience seats: Harold Thompson, another victim named George Willis, some reporters, and their own small group including Grandma Lou, Uncle Pete, and Ben, who had taken the day off work to be there. And then there was Regina, sitting at the defendant's table in a plain navy dress, her once highlighted hair now a dull brown with gray roots showing. She looked older, harder, the mask of charm completely gone. When she spotted Kai and Thomas entering, her eyes narrowed briefly before she turned away. The judge, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, called the court to order. There were legal formalities that Kai didn't fully understand, the prosecutor and defense attorney taking turns speaking. Regina had pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and other charges as part of her plea agreement. When it was time for victim statements, Harold Thompson went first. He spoke quietly about the trust that had been violated, the savings for his retirement that had vanished, the humiliation of having to explain to his children how he had been fooled. George Willis, an elderly man who needed a cane to walk to the podium, described how Regina had targeted him just months after losing his wife of 47 years. Then the judge called Kai's name. Thomas squeezed his hand once before Kai stood and made his way to the front of the courtroom. He had prepared what he wanted to say, practicing with his grandmother until he felt confident, but standing there now, looking at the woman who had almost destroyed his family, the carefully rehearsed, words fled from his mind. "Take your time, young man," the judge said kindly. Kai took a deep breath. "My name is Kai Mitchell. I'm 13 years old. Last year, the woman sitting there tried to marry my dad so she could steal from him." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "She came into our lives when we were still sad about my mom dying. She pretended to be nice. She pretended to care about us." Regina stared straight ahead, refusing to look at him. But it was all fake. Everything about her was a lie. Kai glanced at his father, drawing strength from his encouraging nod. "She almost sent me away to boarding school so I couldn't stop her. She almost took my dad away from me." Kai turned to face Regina directly. "I want you to know something. We're okay now. My dad and me, we're happy again. The money you stole? It was just money. We still have what really matters. Our family, our home, each other. That's something you can never take from us, no matter how hard you try." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I'm not angry at you anymore. I just feel sorry for you. Because you'll never know what it's like to really love someone and be loved back, not if you keep tricking people and pretending to be someone you're not." Regina's jaw tightened, but she continued to stare straight ahead. "That's all I wanted to say," Kai concluded. "Thank you for listening." As he returned to his seat, he heard a few sniffles from the audience. His grandmother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, and even the stern-faced judge seemed moved. After all the statements were made, the judge addressed Regina directly. "Ms. Fletcher, you have systematically preyed upon vulnerable people during their darkest moments of grief. You have shown no remorse for your actions, only regret at being caught." She adjusted her glasses, reviewing the papers before her. "In accordance with your plea agreement, I sentence you to 7 years in state prison with eligibility for parole after 5 years, and restitution payments to all identified victims." The gavel came down with a sharp crack, and just like that, it was over. Regina was led away by a court officer, her expression blank. She never looked back at them, never acknowledged Kai's words, but that was okay. He hadn't spoken for her benefit, but for his own. Outside the courthouse, reporters approached them, but Thomas politely declined to comment. guiding Kai toward their car with a protective arm around his shoulders. "I'm proud of you," Thomas said, as they drove home. "That took a lot of courage." "I meant what I said, Dad. I'm not angry anymore. I just want to move on." Thomas nodded. "Me too, buddy, me too." That evening, they had a small celebration at home, not for Regina's sentencing, but for closing that chapter of their lives. Grandma Lou made Kai's favorite lasagna. Uncle Pete brought a chocolate cake from the fancy bakery downtown. Jay, Mai, and Ben arrived with a new video game they'd all been wanting to try. As the adults chatted in the kitchen, Kai slipped outside to the backyard, needing a moment of quiet. The summer night was warm, stars just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. He sat on the old swing his father had hung from the oak tree years ago, gently pushing himself back and forth with his foot. "Room for company?" Thomas asked, appearing at the back door with 2 glasses of lemonade. "Sure." Kai moved over on the wide swing seat, taking the offered drink. Thomas settled beside him, and for a while, they just sat in comfortable silence, listening to the chorus of crickets and distant laughter from inside the house. "I've been thinking," Thomas said finally. "Maybe it's time for a change." Kai looked up, suddenly worried. "What kind of change?" "Not a bad one," Thomas reassured him quickly. "I was thinking maybe we could take a trip this summer. Just the 2 of us. Go see the Grand Canyon, maybe. Your mom always wanted to take you there." Kai smiled, remembering how his mother had kept a travel scrapbook of places she wanted them to visit someday. "I'd like that." "And when we get back," Thomas continued, "I've been considering stepping back a bit from the business. Working fewer hours, being home more." "Because of what happened with Rebecca?" Kai asked. Thomas shook his head. "No, because of what happened with you." He turned to face his son. "This past year has shown me what's really important. I don't want to miss any more of your growing up than I already have." Inside the house, they could hear Grandma Lou calling them for dessert. Thomas stood, offering his hand to pull Kai up from the swing. "Ready to go in?" he asked. "Almost." Kai hesitated, then asked the question that had been on his mind throughout the court proceedings. "Dad, do you ever wish I hadn't figured out what Rebecca was doing? Like, do you ever wish you could have just stayed happy with her, even if it was all fake?" Thomas's expression grew serious. "No, Kai, never. A life built on lies isn't really living. What we have now, this messy, sometimes difficult, completely real life together, it's worth 1,000 fake romances." "Even with Mom gone?" Kai pressed. "Even when it's hard?" "Especially then." Thomas put his arm around Kai's shoulders. "Your mother taught me that real love means seeing someone completely, flaws and all, and choosing them anyway. Rebecca never saw the real me. She just saw a target. But you, your grandmother, our family, you all see me as I really am, and you love me anyway. That's the only kind of love worth having." As they walked back toward the house, the windows glowing with warm light, Kai felt a sense of completion. The Rebecca chapter was finally truly closed. Whatever came next, the Grand Canyon trip, high school in the fall, all the unknowns of the future, they would face it together, as a family. Not a perfect family, not a complete one, but a real one. In the kitchen, Grandma Lou was serving enormous slices of cake while Uncle Pete told a story that had Jay and Ben laughing so hard they could barely breathe. These people had come together to save his dad when Kai couldn't do it alone. They had believed him when no one else would. They were his team, his backup, his safety net. "Everything okay?" Thomas asked, noticing Kai's thoughtful expression. Kai nodded, accepting a plate with a slice of cake that was way too big for a normal Thursday night. "Everything's perfect, Dad." And in that moment, surrounded by the people who loved him, with the weight of Regina Fletcher finally lifted from their shoulders, it truly was.